Okay guys, so in my opinion, the chapter is actually broken up into two separate parts. The first part's all about dealing with the insecurities that Sekiri currently has about being in this new era, especially since she was actually born technically 500 plus years ago. And then the second part is all about dealing with the aftermath of the trial, exactly what's going to end up happening to those two characters, whether or not they're going to be sentenced to death or set free, and basically if there's going to be any ramifications for the Black Wolves to face for forcibly entering the trial and interrupting it. Hey, what's up, guys? Alright, so the chapter opens up, and we actually spend the first page or two dealing with some comedic moments from the Black Wolves interacting with each other. The first comedic moment we obviously get to see is something we all expected to happen. The second Gouch saw Marie in Asta's arms, which is basically he uses his magic to shoot a laser at Asta in an attempt to kill him. He literally tries to kill him in this chapter, even though in the last chapter he claimed that he was here to save him. It's something we all expected to happen. We knew it was going to happen. We all saw it coming a mile away, but it's still a hilarious moment to see. We also get a moment that's kind of cute but kind of funny at the same time about Noelle chastising Asta for being captured so easily. You could just tell the fact that she was concerned about him. She basically yelled at him saying that, how many times do you have to die before you're satisfied and before we had to stop saving your ass. But yeah, the first page or two is all just nothing but comedic moments. Really the only comedic moments we have in the chapter. And it was such a refreshing sight to see these comedic moments between the Black Bull members. Because if you think about it, it has been such a long time since we actually got to see the entire squad together in one place. Because if you look back to the previous arc, we did not at one point get the entire squad together again. I mean, we had a few chapters where most of the squad was together, but there was always one or two members who were not there. Especially once Asta and Noelle actually had to go inside the Dark Castle along with Yami. And by that point, Finral was actually out for the count. He was actually knocked out by saving his own brother. They were not at one point throughout the entire previous arc where they were dealing with the elves or dealing with the demon all together in one place. This past chapter, last week's chapter, was the first time we got to see them in such a long time together as one squad. So it's such a refreshing sight to get to see them interact the way we expect them to, with these comedic moments of, them being at each other's throats, them trying to attack each other and yelling at each other, but at the same time having that same sense of camaraderie that they always had throughout the entire series. And you know what? It's even cooler if you think about it this way. Since the last time we actually got to see the entire squad together, we've gained basically 3 new members. I mean, sure, 2 of them were technically already part of the Black Wolves, we just hadn't known it yet. But still, we gained 3 brand new members over this arc, even though this is the first time since before the arc started that we actually got to see the entire squad together. Now, once we get past the whole comedy of the first page or two, we actually get right into what I consider the first part of the chapter, which is basically dealing with Sekiri's insecurities. And what we end up finding out in this chapter is that basically, because of the fact that A, she was born over 500 years ago, and B, because of the forbidden magic that she used, she no longer is fully human, especially since she has the horns that a demon would have. She basically doesn't see herself as being worthy of them protecting her as a human, or even considering her a comrade. Or, I guess in a sense, you can even interpret it as her basically saying that she isn't fully human, so she doesn't have the right to live freely like a human would. And you know what? In this chapter, Yami actually gets to show exactly why he is a captain. He basically has the most impressive line of dialogue that I've seen in a long time from him in this chapter when he's talking to Sekiri after she argues that they should use her as a scapegoat in order to save Asta. And basically what he tells her is that it doesn't matter if the rest of the world sees her as a freak or a weirdo, because that's pretty much what everyone in the Black Wolves is. She will be among friends. She would be among fellow weirdos if she decides to join up with them. And that's pretty much true. I mean, if you think about it, the Black Wolves are made up of nothing but freaks, weirdos, people who are basically outcasts from the rest of the Clover Kingdom. I mean, if you think about it, we have 3 disgraced nobles. We have 1 Brad who has no magic ability whatsoever. We have a person who's a member of one of the royal families who is looked down upon by every other person because of the fact that she had no control over her own mana. We have a witch, we have a half-dwarf, we have a guy who actually can't be around other people without stealing their magical energy and basically killing them. We have nothing but freaks and weirdos as members of the Black Wolves. So, of course, this is the perfect squad for her to end up joining. And once Yami actually ends up giving her the cloak for the Black Wolves, she immediately breaks her chains and officially accepts herself as being a member of their squad. And deciding to go instead by the name Sekiri anymore, she decides to continue on with the name Nero, which is the name that the rest of them pretty much know her as. We also get to find out in this chapter exactly what Dominato's abilities actually are, or at least what the 2 scales that we've seen him use up until this point can actually do. So the first scale is the scale we actually got to see him use when he was introduced a few chapters ago. And basically, when I originally saw that scale, I thought it had the ability to steal the mana from his opponents and transfer it either into himself or into attack that he can send back at them. Because seemingly when he saved the Emperor from those other nobles who were trying to attack him, that it looked like that's what he did. It looked like he stole their mana and actually turned it into an attack and destroyed them with it. But we'll end up finding out in this chapter when he's actually using it against the Black Bulls. The ability it has is to regulate magic or regulate mana. So basically, if his opponent or opponents have more mana than him or overpower him, he can kind of balance the scales so that it's a more even fight, which is what he does against the Black Bulls in the chapter. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to what he did to the nobles in the chapter he was introduced. Because if he was just balancing it out so that they're more even with him together as one, then why was he able to destroy them all with one attack? I mean, maybe he was using a different scale. Maybe I'm wrong and he actually was using a different scale in that chapter than what he used in this chapter against the Black Bulls. But it seemed like it was the same scale. It seemed like it had the same magical effect. It just had a different explanation than I expected it to have, I guess. I mean, I guess it kind of could make sense if you think about it. I guess since all together they equaled his magic abilities, he would be able to defeat them with one attack. I don't know, Dominado's first scale kind of confuses me, so I'm going to have to go back and actually look at it and analyze it a little bit more. Hopefully we actually get to see more of it in action in future chapters so I can actually have more details exactly what it can do. But anyway, on to the second scale, which we end up finding out in this chapter. Originally, I thought that scale basically judged someone's innocence or guilt based off what crime they're being accused of. And in a sense, it kind of does. But it doesn't do it the way I thought it did. I originally thought that it would judge them based off of whether or not they actually are truly innocent or guilty. But what we end up finding out in this chapter is that scale basically runs off of public opinion, or opinion of the people in the area that's surrounded in. So since they were in a courtroom full of nobles and royals who all have a grudge against Asta and all wanted to basically sentence him to death, the scale was always going to tip in the favor of Asta being guilty over him being innocent. So yeah, it seems like I was actually just wrong about Dominado completely. It seems like he was never actually planning on giving Asta a fair trial. He was doing exactly what we expected any member of the royal house who has a grudge or has hatred towards commoners, especially someone like Asta who has no magical abilities, would do. And it's basically put them on trial, basically use them as a scapegoat to protect the rest of the kingdom. And that's seemingly what he was planning on doing to Asta until the Black Bull showed up and actually basically got in the way of his plan. Now, despite the fact that I'm disappointed that I was actually wrong about Dominado seemingly, we still have a few chapters left, or at least one more chapter left dealing with this whole trial to figure out whether or not actually he was against Asta or not. But even though I'm a little bit disappointed seemingly that he actually was against Asta, I'm still looking forward to seeing Dominado in future chapters because I want to see how his magic will be used against a credible opponent. Because we only get to see him use it briefly against some nobles who he was able to easily defeat. And we get to see him use it in this chapter, but it's quickly taken care of. And he doesn't actually get to fight. We don't actually get to see him in action really in the chapter. So I'm interested in seeing exactly how his skills will work in an actual fight. Because as of right now, they seem very overpowered. And I basically want to see exactly how it would face off against a credible opponent, which we almost got to see in this chapter. So basically, both scales get counteracted in this chapter. The first scale, which is a scale that basically drains the mana from the rest of the Black Bulls, gets counteracted by Asta's Demon Destroyer Sword, the sword that actually lets him dispel magical effects and curses. And once Asta uses his Demon Destroyer Sword to basically dispel the magical effect that Dominado's scale was putting on the rest of the Black Bulls, we immediately see Yami go on the offensive. And once he goes to attack Dominado, we see Nozel and Fugoyan show up and actually stop Yami from attacking him and actually stop Dominado from attacking Yami, even though it seems like Yami was the only one really attacking. Now, this is actually a kind of cool moment. You know, it's nice to see these two characters show up, but I can't help but thinking when I read the chapter, why are they just now showing up for the trial? I mean, if you think about it, they should have been there from the beginning, especially since they are both members of two of the royal houses and they are both widely respected Magic Knight captains. Why weren't they there originally to help Asta in his defense? They should have been summoned immediately to the trial, and they should have been there to influence the crowd into believing that Asta was innocent. Because Fugoyan does like Asta, he actually is on friendly terms with Asta, and Nozel has a newfound respect for him. So they would have been very influential and convincing everyone else in the audience that Asta was actually innocent of the crime he's being accused of. And since we now know the domino scale actually works with the opinion of the crowd that he's surrounded by, it would have been very helpful to them to be there from the very beginning to convince the crowd so that domino scale would actually tip in Asta's favor of him being innocent instead of always tipping in the scale of him being guilty. At the very least, if the two of them would have been there from the beginning, we would have seen the scale basically tip in a way that it did by the end of the chapter, which basically once the two of them say exactly why they're there, the scale ends up going from being completely against Asta to being more balanced, which means that they were able to convince the crowd, that at least half of the crowd, that Asta might not actually be guilty. But anyway, like I said, the two of them actually end up showing up. They stop Yami and Damiano from fighting each other, which, like I said, it was kind of interesting because if you look at the channel, if you look at that part of the chapter, it originally seems like Yami's the only one trying to attack, but since Fugoyan actually has Salamander wrapped around Damiano, seemingly Damiano was actually planning on doing some kind of counterattack that was strong enough to either counter Yami's attack or do some damage to him, so much so that Fugoyan had to step in and stop him himself. So I'm interested in seeing exactly what he would have done. But anyway, the two of them show up and they end up revealing exactly why they're there. And that is basically they were given a mission by the Magical Emperor himself, Julius, while he still has the authority of being the Magical Emperor. He's basically using that authority to try to save Asta and the rest of the Black Bulls from facing any persecution or any judgment from the Magical Parliament. And basically what his plan is that he decrees that Asta is going to be exiled from the Clover Kingdom until he can find solid evidence to prove his innocence. And at the same time, he gives the Black Bulls the mission of monitoring Asta while he's on a search for that evidence. So basically in one fell swoop with just one letter, Julius was able to save everyone's lives. And it's kind of scary how he was able to predict it. Yami even mentioned this chapter that it's kind of scary how much he can actually kind of see into the future and predict things, because he had already predicted the fact that Asta would actually end up being put on trial and used as a scapegoat. And he actually sent Fugoyan and Nozel a letter ahead of time, or gave him this mission ahead of time, basically understanding that Yami and the rest of the Black Bulls would just jump headfirst into the fire trying to save Asta and Sekre. And you know what, now that I think about it, if you look back to like 2 or 3 chapters ago when he was basically telling Asta, Noel, Mimosa, and Yami about the other kingdoms, this makes a lot of sense that he actually did plan on sending them into exile to figure out the truth about the demons ahead of time. Because why else would he give them information about the other kingdoms if he wasn't planning on having them go to each of those kingdoms in order to find out exactly what's going on with the demon, find out some evidence, and basically save Asta's life? And you know what, I have to admit, I completely missed the foreshadowing on this. I did not expect Asta to end up being exiled from the kingdom. And honestly, I should have seen it because, like I said, the foreshadowing was right there in our face. We saw the fact that Joyce was basically giving us the information on the other kingdoms, a little bit of information here and there, which obviously was foreshadowing the fact that we were going to be visiting those kingdoms at some point. But I just figured that we'd be going there on missions. I didn't think that Asta would actually end up being exiled. But given the sequence of events, given the fact that basically we knew that Asta was going to be used as a scapegoat, and there wasn't really much that even Julius could do to save him and basically stop him from being executed, I should have seen these sequence of events coming. But yeah, it's pretty much where the chapter ends, with Asta and the Black Bulls being sentenced to exile until they can find evidence to prove Asta's innocence. Now, a few things popped in my head after reading this chapter. A, how's it going to go forward when the next Magic Emperor is decided? Because obviously Julius is going to be outed soon, and eventually he's going to have to give up his position. So I wonder, is the next Magic Emperor going to keep with this decision that Julius just made and actually keep the Black Bulls in exile and let Asta go free? Or is this person actually going to end up deciding to summon them all back and try to sentence Asta to execution? And B, are we going to go forward the next few arcs just dealing with the Black Bulls going to these other kingdoms? Or are we going to continue being in the Clover Kingdom for a few arcs, dealing with some of the other characters? Like, are we going to have a few arcs dealing with Yuno and the rest of the Golden Dawns? Are we going to see some of Fugoyan and some of his people? Are we going to basically see some of the other characters that we got to know and love in the Clover Kingdom in future arcs, basically focusing mostly on them? Or are we going to focus solely on Asta and the Black Bulls? I don't know. I'm hoping we don't focus solely on the Black Bulls, because I would like to see some of the adventures that Yuno and the rest of them go on. But if we do end up focusing on the Black Bulls, it actually would do well for world building. So I'm kind of iffy on which one I actually want to see more. Oh, and before I end the video, there's also the situation with Sally, because like I said in my previous video, I really want her to end up becoming a Black Bull. It seemed like the Tabata was heavily foreshadowing her becoming a member of the squad. So I wonder if now that they are in exile, since she's technically being put on, or since she's technically serving her criminal service, I wonder if she'll be able to basically go into exile with them and they invite her to become a member of the Black Bulls, and that will basically serve as her serving her community service by joining them in exile and monitoring Asta. Or if we're going to have to put that on hold and basically not see her join the Black Bulls for a while until such a time comes when they can actually return to the kingdom. I don't know, I'm hoping she actually ends up going with them, because it was so much fun during the previous arc seeing her interact with the rest of the Black Bull members that I want to see more of that interaction happen. But if we had to wait, or if Tabata decides not to actually end up making her official member, and we just see her here and there join up with them and fight, I guess I'll accept that. But I don't know, I'm really hoping we see, after this whole thing's done, that she ends up joining the Black Bulls and goes into exile with them. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all that happened in the chapter. Now, before I do end the video, I do want to say that I do plan on, before the next video comes out, I'm hoping to have a video put out basically giving my prediction exactly what the sequence of events is going to be. Basically saying exactly what order I think that the Black Bulls are going to be visiting these other kingdoms. Just to give a brief description, I basically think that they're going to go to the Diamond Kingdom first, and then just basically follow the same order that Joyce mentioned the kingdoms and gave details about them. But I'll give a more detailed video about that later on. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Comment down below with thoughts and theories, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.